Thank you. It's just turned 3:30. Welcome to the Poverty Reduction Policy Development Committee. Item 1 is apologies for absence.
I've had none, Chair.
None. And then disclosures of personal and prejudicial interest. If something crops up during the meeting, just disclose it then. Just before I go on to item 3, to approve and sign the minutes of the previous meeting. You've all had copies. I go through each page at a time. Page 1, page 2, page 3, page 4, and page 5.
Chair.
Hello. Yes.
On page 4, I think somebody might have spelt deprivation wrong. And I hate the word deprivation anyway, and I hate even more the way it's been misspelled. I don't think it's what somebody intended.
On page 4.
Yeah.
On page 4, when it's about halfway down, it says, the committee discussed the following, and it's the second point, the poverty stroke, it should be deprivation.
Okay, yeah, I'll get that amended.
You're the only one that spotted that there, Les. Well done. And then page 5, minutes as a whole. Will somebody move?
Move.
Right, we all agree. Before we go on to item 4, if you remember at our last meeting, we decided to discuss the community food growing policy at this meeting. This is not ready at this moment in time, as further input is needed by officers, so hopefully we can bring that to our next meeting. I like the way Joe is nodding there. And Amy then mentioned in our last meeting that suggested it would be useful for the committee to receive an update on the work of the local area coordinators, particularly how they tackle poverty. So before I ask John to come in, Amy, do you want to introduce this?
Yes, thank you. And thank you for adding this to the agenda. Yeah, we're really pleased to share some information with you today. I think it might be, John might just give you a bit of an overview, and then if you've got any questions or any comments or suggestions even in terms of the poverty reduction links, that would be really useful as well. So I think we put this on the agenda in terms of a discussion point as well as a sort of update, if that's okay. But yeah, pleased to introduce John to you. I know you'll all know John, but just to give some information about the local area coordination in Swansea.
Okay, so for you, John, welcome to the committee. We were getting excited then because we could see on our screen that you haven't joined. So
I'm here.
Over to you.
Thank you, Amy. Thank you. I may be a little bit. I've got a cough and I'm on antibiotics, so excuse me if I have to cough, but hopefully I'll be okay. So yeah, lots of you are already aware of local area coordination in Swansea.
John, it's a really bad line. Is it worthwhile possibly switching your camera off to help?
Yep. Hang on.
See if that helps. I don't know.
Is that better?
Seems to be, yeah.
Getting a little bit of feedback. And it might be another speaker on. But... Can you hear okay?
Yeah. Switch over the microphone.
Yeah.
How's that? Better? Okay. I'll keep going until someone tells me it's not so. So yeah, so local area coordination is an approach that recognises and supports the value of individual gifts, skills and assets, and also the powerful and positive role of families and relationships, and the contribution that local communities can make as alternatives to professional health and social care services. So we very much are based in the area of prevention, in the role of prevention, of walking alongside individuals in their communities, enabling them to stay strong and confident and resilient, and helping them to delay or even completely put off their need for some kind of formal service, whether that be social services or whether that be some kind of medical service. Our role is to try and work with people who, if they were left on their own, would need some kind of service in the next 12 to 18 months. And by walking alongside them, helping them to increase their confidence and their resilience, and connecting them, importantly, to other people in the community, we are aiming to keep them strong and healthy. So, as I'm sure you're aware, we're part of the National Local Area Coordination Network. And the national vision is for local area coordination is that all people live in welcoming communities that provide friendship, mutual support, equity and opportunities for everybody. And so we do that by building partnerships with individuals and communities. And I guess the headline for today's meeting is that we now have a full team across the county. So we recently recruited the last 4 local area coordinators. So there's a coordinator in every part of Swansea County. So the last parts of the Gower are now being covered, which means that anybody and any of the people that you come in contact with as councillors is now able to make a connection with a local area coordinator. And those guys have now got through their induction process, so they're now in the process of taking what we call introductions. So we use the word introductions rather than referrals, just because it really illustrates the way we work with people. We're not experts, we're skilled generalists, and we walk alongside people. And so having an introduction to somebody that we walk alongside makes more sense than having a referral, because a referral sounds a little bit like we're experts and we're going to give someone some expert opinion, which isn't our role. Our role is one to walk alongside people and help them improve in their confidence and their resilience. So I guess that's the main thing. We've now got a team of 23 coordinators across the whole country, which is fantastic. Excuse me. We are working really closely with our colleagues in tackling poverty. A lot of the people that we work with have numerous reasons for their introductions to us. Sometimes it may be described as the person who introduced us. So it could be we get instructions from GPs, from social workers, from other third sector people, from other people in the community. We also get direct introductions as well from people themselves. And quite often the reason for their initial introduction may not be, and often isn't, the only thing that's going on in their life. So one of the things which the coordinators do is spend time to get to know people, walk alongside them and find out about all the other things that are going on in their lives. And rather than assessing the needs in their lives, it's about trying to find out some of the strengths and good things that are going on as well. But sometimes we're faced with initial issues which they need help with. And so that means that quite often we're working with our friends in tackling poverty, so with welfare services, welfare rights, helping people to get the right welfare benefits. We help with people to advocate for themselves. So we, again, in our walking alongside role, if we're working with people who are, we help them to find the right information around welfare, around benefits, around employment, around whatever the issue may be, then we would help them to advocate for themselves. So we would be alongside them, helping them to do that, rather than taking on that role and advocating for them. We'd be walking alongside them and helping them. And there's lots of stories that we've had of people who have applied for benefits, applied for some kind of employment, and have been unable to do that on their own, but because the coordinator's been walking alongside them to do that, they've been able to have the confidence and the ability to do that. So, there's lots of food poverty that we were obviously dealing with during the pandemic, and some of that has still continued. So we're working very closely with all the food banks in our area as well, and the third sector organisations that are working with people in poverty. The team are really, really busy. We're aware that now there's an ongoing crisis in terms of being able to provide social support for people. Excuse me. But we are really keen on being able to take introductions from our colleagues, both within the council and from outside, our partners outside. Really as early as we can. So as I was saying at the beginning, our role is a preventative one. Sometimes we show wasn't able to put this together in time, I'm afraid, so I've been off sick, but sometimes we show a graphic of a cliff face when we're explaining local area coordination, saying that very often there are people who fall over the cliff who need emergency and crisis care. We work a long way back from the cliff edge, back in the communities where people can stay strong and we can help people connect with each other, support each other and stay strong. And so the earlier that we can get introductions to people, the easier it is for us to make those connections and help people work closely together. There was I mentioned the pandemic and obviously the difficulty that's been, but one of the positives that's come out of that is we found a huge amount of community spirit, of people who were really keen on supporting each other, supporting their neighbours. Our role in that was very much a facilitating one to help bring together some of the hyper-local neighbour-to-neighbour support that was going on. So in addition to all the formal volunteering that happened, there was an awful lot of informal volunteering. I'm sure as councillors you'll be aware of some of the things that were going on in your street. There are street coordinators, street champions, people who are offering to do food collections or prescription collections or dog walks or whatever it might be. I think we had over 20,000 different requests for support in that informal way, and that was really encouraging. It made a lot of links, and it's been quite sustainable because those links have continued. People who have many stories of people who didn't know each other pre-pandemic, because they were put in that position and they needed the help of each other, have now got to know neighbours, and that relationship is continuing post-lockdown. So there's an awful lot of more connections that have been made between neighbours as a result of that, and that can only be a good thing. Excuse me. Sorry, folks. One of the ways which I always like to explain local area coordination is to tell a story. So a very quick, one of the stories is the way that we explain how an intervention with local area coordination works and the effect that it has on people. So if you don't mind, I'll tell you a very quick story about a lady called Jenny. Jenny was introduced to her local area coordinator up in the north of the county. Jenny was somebody who was struggling with physical and mental health problems. She was a single mum, had a young boy, and because of her illness and the pain that she was in, she was unable to walk her boy to school, which meant that, and because she was on her own, it meant that her son was unable to go to school. So obviously the school were concerned about it. The local area coordinator who was involved was able just to take time to get to know Jenny, to build that relationship, which is so important, a trusting relationship with her, and over time helped her to start leaving the flat and to walk short distances to start off with. And they continued over time, and eventually she was able to walk to the school. And to cut a very long story short, because this kind of story is something that happens over months rather than weeks or days, this Jenny was able to walk her son to school, and she actually texted Beth, who's a local area coordinator, with it, really excited to say she managed a whole week of walking her son to school. So that was encouraging, but of course life doesn't always continue to get better. She had some ups and downs, and actually she started to struggle the following week. So Beth continued to stay in contact with her, and they worked with the school, and the school were very helpful also. Beth's involvement, the local area coalition's involvement with Jenny meant that Jenny had the confidence to go to the school, and they managed to negotiate a way of her getting to school. She was able to go a little bit later. She was able to use a different entrance, so it wasn't quite as difficult for Jenny to go there when it was really busy, because that's one of her anxieties. And so that advocating, it helping the person to advocate for themselves, meant that it just made it a lot easier. Now Jenny is in a situation where she's regularly taking her son to school. She's looking to get involved in the gym so that she can increase some of her physical health. She's now able to go and see the doctor, and local area coordinators managed to help her to advocate with the health service as well about the pain that she was in. And importantly, her son is getting to school. So that story continues, but it's a good example of how somebody's life can change significantly for the better just by having someone alongside them, helping them to take the confidence to take some steps they need. And it's not only the impact just on Jenny, but also obviously on her son as well, because the fact that he wasn't getting to schools, it was obviously a major concern. And the people around her as well, the people around Jenny, her friends. So that kind of impacts lots of different people in lots of ways. And I'm sure that you can imagine if that intervention hadn't happened, how that story may have gone. You know, we can never be exactly sure. But if Jenny had continued not to be able to take her son to school and not to leave the house and hadn't had that support, then potentially, you know, she could have been looking at a very, very difficult situation indeed. So that's just one story of many. We try and share our stories monthly, and we're happy to share those with anybody. But it's a good way of us being able to explain our role and how we work. So that's an explanation of our role and what we do. We're really positive about the potential of and the resilience that is in our Swansea communities. A number of really positive people that live there, and the strengths of the gifts and the skills that we see in the people living in our communities. And we know that that when they're given the opportunity to use those gifts and skills and contribute to their communities and contribute to their neighbours and their friends living in their communities, that it makes a massive difference. And our role, I think, as local area coordinators, is to continue to work in that preventative space of identifying people who just need that step of confidence. They need somebody to walk alongside them to help them to keep strong, because that way we're able to keep them away from out of services and statutory services and help to reduce the demand on those. So I hope that makes sense. I'm very happy to answer any questions you've got. I'll try and come back onto my camera back on so that you can see me when I'm answering questions. Now I'm not talking, so.
You got your hand up. Hang on, Eric, I'll bring Amy in first just to finish it off.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to mention as well, as John mentioned, we've now expanded. We're covering the whole county area. We do actually have a vacancy at the moment, but hoping to fill that very soon. And one of the team's going on maternity as well, so we'll fill that vacancy. But we'll be up, you know, every area will has local area coordination. We're also working with Swansea University on an evaluation of the programme, because we started in 2016 and have had such a large expansion in the last year, really, very quickly, that we want to just ensure we're critically examining the evidence base of the work. Because we're really pleased to always share with you the stories and the impact, but we also want to make sure that that's academically qualified as well. So we have that sort of evidence base. We also want to ensure that we map that evolution of local area coordination just to really capture it all and ensure the value there, just for the wider audiences outside the authority, but also for you as members as well, because it's obviously quite a large investment in terms of local area coordination that we make as a council, but also a number of our partners invest in local area coordination as well. So we're going to be working with the university around some just identifying the cost benefit of local area coordination as well. So just looking how this preventative work is saving money. and also just to look at the specific challenges that local area coordination has been addressing as well, directly link them with the work of the PGC, focusing, John's mentioned references already around food poverty and finances as well, but also housing, isolation and mental health as well, which is a really key areas that the team work with people and work alongside people to support with. So just wanted to highlight those few areas. Oh, and the evaluation will be going on over the next few months, so we'll have some outcomes of that later in the year.
Erica?
Oh, thank you, Chair. I'm sorry for the delay. That's very welcome information. Thank you, Amy. It's really good that the university are going to assess, because I think we've all been really keen when this initiative started off in 2016, because we all know the individuals that it's just a little bit of, as John said, holding hands. It's sometimes only a little bit of time and they gain some confidence and can move on from the different lifestyles and problems they face. First of all, I just want to say, John, I hope you get better. You sound very rough there. So please get better soon. We've got a new coordinator in Castle now, I'm delighted to say as well. But you mentioned about street champions, and I was wondering if there could be a direct a connection with the street champions and their local councillors, so we could, perhaps keep a better tab on what's going on in our area. So thanks very much for all the work you do. I'm just delighted that it's improving and there's more coming as well, because that's what our society needs right now. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Erica. Peter?
Thank you, Chair. First of all, John, thank you very much for your introduction. And speaking from Sketty, we have a wonderful local area coordinator. Of course, she is the one who's going off on maternity leave very shortly. And I hope and pray that she will be replaced by someone as good, even half as good as she is, would be quite an achievement in itself. She's absolutely wonderful. The problem is going to get worse, and the tasks that local area coordinators face are going to get worse. And why are they going to get worse? Food prices rising, energy costs spiralling away, universal credit being withdrawn, or the 20% being withdrawn from those who have been in receipt of it. So that poverty is going to increase among certain sectors of our society, and poverty in turn leads to debt, and debt leads to stress. And stress, I guess, is where the local area coordinators can come in and try to help. So I just wonder, John, whether obviously you're aware of this forthcoming worsening in the situation. What can local area coordinators do other than to try to help people find sources of support and finance that might be available? But the situation is going to get worse in my expectation. Thank you.
Liz?
Thanks, Chair. First of all, thank you very much, John and Amy. Really good to hear the update. And I've got to be honest, when it first came in, I wasn't that sure how it was going to pan out. So I'm pleased to be able to say the local area coordinator we've got has proved to be a real godsend, I suppose you could say. And hopefully she'll carry on being so. I appreciate some of the comments Peter has made, because I think it is going to get harder for all of us, but with a heavier burden on local area coordinators in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Les. Anybody else? Linda?
Great, thanks. Hello, John. Good to see you again, actually. And in Bishopston, Pennard, we've just had a new area coordinator, and just in fact finished her induction course, Sarah Aldrin, who's doing hit the ground running really. And I was able to sit down with her along with Ronan ready to go through some of the key sort of contacts she can make as well. And in fact, she actually telephoned just before I came on this meeting. Yeah, you know, I'm very much looking forward to working with her to deliver, you know, and help her, you know, make the best of her job. One of the points that Peter forgot to make, and is the fact that sadly in Wales we are the lowest wage economy in the UK, worse than Scotland, worse than England, and that is the fault, of course, of the Assembly government. And when they get a grip with the economy, hopefully we'll get better wages in Wales, and that will help. But that is the underlying problem, I think, that you forgot to mention.
Chris?
Yes, before I talk about local area coordinators, I think that Lyndon Jones may have forgotten something as well. That although we may be the lowest wage economy in the UK, we are subject to the price hikes that are currently going on at the moment and the rate of inflation that is increasing because of the UK government. I thought I'd say that because Lyndon always takes the opportunity to have a pop at our Welsh government. So I thought I'd actually pin the fault exactly where it belongs. But local area coordinators, I was very happy back in 2015 when my ward was a pilot for local area coordination. And indeed, in that time, we weren't quite sure how things were going to go and, you know, what direction. And I'm delighted to see how this role has blossomed over the last 6, going on 7 years. In the Lacha area, we indeed had quite a number of local area coordinators, and there have been reorganisations between the different wards. But I find them invaluable. They're an excellent link. They're non-threatening. People are not particularly, afraid to approach them. They're very personable, and they're an excellent way of providing support to people who just need that extra bit of hand-holding to get them going and give them a leg up. I'm also very pleased that they sort of first of all, it was mostly about links with social services, and that role has spread. So it's really cross-council. And Amy, you were talking about, working with the poverty team. That's something that's very important. And all other areas of council services as well, and others outside the council who, it's just really being a signpost and a helping hand to make people help people make the very best of things. I know certainly that maybe one of the things is that we may well be dealing with a lot of people now who never ever expected to have to approach someone for help. I think as local councillors, we may well have seen that happening during the pandemic, where people, who never thought in 1,000 years that they'd have to use a food bank, found themselves needing a food bank. And I think the same is true of people having to approach others for a helping hand, because we're in very, very stressful times at the moment. I think our local area coordinators should be praised. I think they're a fabulous resource for the council. Thank you.
Right, sorry, I was having trouble switching myself on then. Can I first of all apologise for being late? I had a work meeting with the Assembly. This is a topic that I think that it's very easy on occasions to be critical of things to do with the council, or at least you feel that people are critical of things to do with the council. But this is an initiative where everybody in Llansamnat that has come into contact with a local area coordinator praises them to high heaven. And as councillors, I'm sure we equally praise our local area coordinators to high heaven, because they really do make a difference with very difficult to reach people. I was with one of the local area coordinators lunchtime, and they were going off to see people to tell people about the new pension helpline. And it's really good that they are well aware of all the different issues connected with what the council are doing with the welfare rights team, etc. And they're able to get in touch with these really difficult, hard to reach people and sort of point them in the right direction. So all I can say is the people that we've had in Llansamlet are marvellous. The initiative is marvellous. And I hope that the local area coordinators go from strength to strength. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, thank you, Dylan. I think just to bring it all together, that I think everybody's happy that we went down the path of local area coordinators. I think I was on the same wavelength as Les when they first came out. Thought, what the heck are they going to do? But like Chris has said, they have come on leaps and bounds, and I can only speak for Pontarlice because I know how the local area coordinator works. We have a building in Pontarlice where the LAC uses a room, and I know the work that he does firsthand because I volunteered in the same building. So we have been working closely ever since Richard, who's our LAC, came into being. But as you're well aware now, Richard is covering for maternity. And I got to be honest, so the next person who's put in his place, Joe, and he's picked it up. I know he had a good teacher in Richard. But, you know, they meet so many people. And like Chris has said, and I think Ryland said, is that they point people in the right direction. But I think we could go a step further with the LACs and make sure that these people they talk to do get in touch with the right people. Not just say this is where you should get in touch and then leave them. You should take them by the hand and lead them down. The other thing, this come to me lately, since I've been on this committee, we've been talking about benefit take-ups. And we were talking about training for the LACs, especially they meet more elderly people than anybody else. And of course, we were saying how much pension credits are underclaimed. You know, we're talking millions. And I've been talking to the LAC, is how do you get around talking to people about their finances? It's a very, very, very delicate point. So I don't know this training, has it started? When is it going to start? Because I think using the LACs this way, because like I said, they meet so many people that are in deprived conditions, and they are like, it's all right when people phone up, but these people are meeting them face to face, and you can't beat face to face. So I don't know if they've done any of the training yet, and I know it's massive because we've got how many, 33, 34 LACs. And just one other thing, like I said, I can only speak about Pontarlice. The building we've got there, we've got like a spare room, so we give it to the LAC and the LAC uses that spare room. So he's got like an office in Pontarlice where he can use. Is that the same in every ward? And if not, what do they do if they haven't got somewhere to go to use as an office? Because I think originally, what Richard said, I use my car. So is that still the case? John, Amy.
Shall I come in first to just try and summarise very quickly as well, add to that, just some of the questions I hope we can answer. So one is about where the team are based. John can let you know about that. The welfare rights one, I'll let you know quickly about that. We've got, the team will have had training and be offered training if they can make it, but obviously that if they've got something else on, they might not prioritise it, but will eventually do it. But we've got one of our welfare rights team, Sheila, is linked closely with the local area coordination team, so she's on hand for them, particularly for the people the area coordinators are working with. So there's that direct link with welfare rights in the team. And then the other question was about what else can local area coordination do with the challenges. And then the final one was about the area coordinators linked to the street champions. So is that all right if I pass to John on this?
So, yeah, so if I can take the down here, if I could take your go back, okay, your question about
You're breaking up again, John. Do you want to switch it?
I think you might need to. Is that better?
Sorry,
Yeah.
John, you're breaking up again. Do you want to switch the camera off? Try that.
Sorry, my apologies. It's typical, isn't it? It's been fine all day. Yeah. So the question about the space and I know Richard's really appreciated having the space in the Canolvan in Pontypridd. It's been really incredibly useful for him having that. Each of the local area coordinators in their first couple of months in post, that their role is to find somewhere that they can use. Now, in some places, in Pontypridd, there's a Canolvan which is available to use. In other places, there are buildings which are owned by other partners who we arrange to organise to use. It's just very different in each area. So there are each coordinator does find places like that. They also focus a lot on what we call bumping spaces, which are the spaces where they're going to meet people. So what we don't want them to do is to be hidden away in an office most of the time, because what we want them to do is to be out meeting people. So it's quite a difficult way of working, but they spend a lot of their time in these bumping spaces in the community. They will spend time, sometimes in libraries, sometimes in community centres, sometimes in places like the Canolvan, where they can do some work, but then most of their work is about talking with people and meeting with people, and so that's what we want them to focus on. And I say every area is a little bit different from there. In terms of the numbers, it's 23 coordinators now across the whole. So we've got a team of 26 with myself and Ronan and Richard, who are the two assistant managers. Or Richard's covering at the moment for Claire while she's on maternity leave. There's 23 coordinators in total, and it's very much, as Councillor says, very much the case that the coordinator role is to walk alongside people and help them to do things. Very much like I explained in Jenny's story, signposting is a part of what we do, but it's not the only thing that we do. So sometimes, and everybody's different, sometimes people just need a little bit of information about a group or about some welfare support or about how they can access employability. And sometimes that's all they need. But a lot of people that we meet aren't in the place to be able to access those things themselves. I guess part of our role is to do more than that. It's to spend time with people and then walk alongside them to help them achieve those things. So it is very much about walking alongside them, helping them to be more confident, and then helping them to access, make those connections and access support where they need it. What we don't want them to do is just to turn up and say, well, if you just go down here on a Thursday afternoon, you can find this, and just point people in the direction, because a lot of people that we work with aren't able to do that. And if they were able just to attend groups themselves, then they would already be doing that. Very often there are other more difficult things going on in their lives, which means that they're not able to, and so they just need that more support. But it's a difficult role, because there's a grey area between giving people the support they need to go and do things for themselves and moving into supporting people per se. And what we don't want to do, we're not support workers, and we don't want to do for people. We don't want to take over and do things for them. We want them to do things for themselves, but very often people need some support to do that. Sorry, Amy, what were the questions?
I think it was also about the links to the street champions, and also the what else can local area coordinators do, but I think you've addressed that second one as well. So it was the street champions.
So in terms of the street champions, I'd like to really appreciate all your comments, your positive comments about the local area coordinations. But their relationship with you as local councillors is really, really important, and we encourage them to make contact with you and to make regular contact with you, because obviously you are in that area and you know people, and building those relationships with partners and other people in their areas is really, really important. In terms of the street champions, we found over the pandemic and over the lockdown that each area worked very differently. So there were some very organised areas where street champions were just needed a little bit of coordination. There were some areas where they needed a lot of organisation, and there were some areas where the councillors were already very involved in that, and others where they weren't so much. So each area has been very different, but that connection is really, really important. So for anybody who would want and Councillor Kirk, and I know you mentioned that, we can certainly make sure that those connections are made with you. That's a really important relationship for us to encourage. So we can take that forward. And I think Councillor Jones's comment about making things getting more difficult. Absolutely, we've already seen the people that we are working with are in more and more difficult situations. There's I'm making there's tougher times to come. Part of the role is to resist trying to just direct people to services and to find really creative ways that we can continue to support people. And there are lots of really good creative things that are going on in the communities that are run by the communities, run by people in the communities that can help support each other. And I think for us, moving forward, and I think the pandemic and the lockdown helped to provide evidence for this, is that when we trust people in our community to look after each other, they do that in a really, really effective, kind and generous way. And I think we're moving forward as things get more difficult, then we will be relying on that sense of community spirit and generosity that we know is in our communities to help people support each other. I hope that answers your question.
Right, thank you, John. No more questions? So can I thank John for an excellent talk on the LACs, and Amy as well for bringing it to our attention. I think a couple of months down the line, we may revisit this before next May, just to see how we go along and how the LACs are performing. Well, hopefully, if COVID ever ends, it'll be outside that, but I can't see that happening. Anyway, thank you both. Excellent. So right, that's the end of that piece. We'll go on now to the 5 is the work plan. So I think next month we'll stay as it is. We'll have feedback from personal debt policy, which we'll have the workshop in following this, and then a report back. And hopefully by December we'll have a finished product which will go to the cabinet member, and then onto the cabinet itself. And hopefully, like I did say earlier on, we could have the community food growing policy as well. So at the moment, we leave it at that, just in case one of them runs on into December, so we don't going to keep pushing things apart. And then we've got the fairness in green health as well, if that comes out of Martin Nichols' office. It's stuck in there for a minute. So right, if that's all, can I thank you all for attending this meeting. It's been very, very interesting. So when you go off this now, we go straight on. I think it was a time. Well, yeah, 2 minutes before the workshop. Good timing. Okay, thank you very much.